Well, folks, we've eagerly been waiting for this moment. We're, of course, almost all set to get underway. Auction fever is in the air, but without all of you fans, as part of the family, as part of the group, as part of the gathering, nothing's going to get started. I can see lots and lots of fans have already joined in. We're waiting for a few more, and I'm loving the fact that so many of you have remained so patient. Some a little impatient, but that's good. Impatience sometimes shows enthusiasm, and that is something we have seen for years and years for all of you in the KKR family. Well, I can tell you one thing, we've got some big things coming up. One very special announcement is going to be coming towards the end of this session. Not that I expect any of you to go away, but just to let you know, just to whet your appetite, that something exciting is going to be coming up, something we're going to talk about towards the end of this session. For now, let me once again welcome all of you and tell you what this is all about. Now, personally, when I think of the word auction, I often think of art. You know, the first thing we think of when we are auctioning is often art, artifacts, paintings. And that is one aspect of it. But when you get into an auction that involves getting members of your family together who are going to perform for you, year after year, then I think art takes a bit of a backseat because you've got to start thinking from here while the players have to perform from here or here or here. Then what does art become? Art becomes science. And yes, folks, that is exactly what we are talking about here. The science of the IPL auction. And of course, we're going to get a little bit of help. I can talk about all the art I want. We've got lots of artistry on the field. But when it comes to the science of making sure you have the right squad, there can only be a couple of people we'd like to involve for the moment. So without any further ado, let me quickly send another invite to the CEO and Managing Director of KKR, Venky Mysore, and the assistant coach. He's such an integral part of the team, Abhishek Nayar.
Gautam, how are you?
Namaskar. Good evening, sir.
Come on, Achin.
Hello. Fatafati. So it's time to welcome, say Namaskar in good Kolkata style, and of course internationally, just a big hello to Venky Mysore and Abhishek Nayar. Gentlemen, how are you?
Excellent, Gautam. Thank you. Thanks for the usual enthusiastic welcome. Really much appreciated. All well. Thank you.
All good, Gautam. Good to be here and good to see you.
Well, all I can tell you, and all I can tell Venky Mysore to him and on his behalf to everyone is, I don't have an option but to be enthusiastic because it's something that's infectious. Yes, we all talk about another kind of infection that's doing the rounds, but there is a certain kind of warmth, affection, and love that's equally infectious. And every time I come to be part of the KKR family, that infection gets to me. So please blame yourself for it, Venky Mysore, for that infectious love.
Happy to spread the infection, Gautam, for a change, I must say, but fantastic.
But really, what we've been talking about and what I started by saying, we've put the art aside and we brought science into it. The science of the IPL auction is what we are talking about. And as part of our entire scientific galaxy, shall we say, we have a galaxy of superstars. And leading the way is the galaxy of knights. Yes, indeed. That is what we are talking about, our superstars. And of course, let me go straight to you, Abhishek. The galaxy of knights that we're talking about, they already have a few founder members. And of course, we're talking about Sunil Narayan and Andre Russell and Varun Chakravarti and Venkatesh Iyer. Many more to be added to that. So it's an ever-growing galaxy, isn't it?
Yeah, we like to hope so. And, it's been a lot of hard work over the years with Venky sir and the management to firstly have 4 top players in our setup. It's always a blessing when you have players like Andre Russell, Sunil Narayan, Varun Chakravarti, and Venkatesh Iyer, already in your galaxy of knights. Going into the auction, it's always a good feeling knowing that you've got the best all-rounders in the sport in your side. You've got two mystery spinners, and I feel having the Superman Andre Russell, creating fear over the years into every opposition. I think it's just a great and comforting feeling to know that you've got such unique players and players who have such big impacts on not only KKR but also the IPL on the whole.
And it's a good reason, Venki, that we are using this term, the Galaxy of Knights, because everyone who gets to be part of this, it's not just the love and the affection, but the kind of performances that are put out there gives them that superstar status and has been for a while.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting that you use the phrase superstars, because we sort of internally always talk about it and say that I think in the history of KKR and the whole auction process, I mean, this is my fourth big auction that we're coming up upon, and we've really not gone after superstars. But on the flip side, somebody pointed out that we have actually helped develop superstars within the setup, which is something that we're very, very proud of. I mean, we talk about Andre Russell, we talk about Sunil Narine. I mean, Sunil Narine has been with us since 2012. And actually, when he came into the auction, which was a mini auction, nobody really knew about him. There were only two franchises, us included, who were bidding for him. And so since then, you know what he has done and how he has grown and overcome adversity as well. In many ways, Andre Russell's story is similar. 2014, he was unsold in the auction, and we recalled his name. We picked him up, and Brendan McCullum likes to say that he's the Michael Jordan of T20 cricket. So it's something that we're really, really proud of. I mean, you've seen what Varun has done in a short period of time. Literally taken center stage, I would say, as a mystery spinner, and has worked very hard on recovery of his injuries and his fitness. And we all know Venkatesh Iyer, what he did in literally half a season, and the meteoric rise he has had to wearing India colors and being spoken about. So credit to them. But certainly Abhishek and the coaching staff and Baz and everyone. I mean, it's a whole ecosystem, and it's very difficult to put your finger on one thing. But a lot of these things have contributed to players coming in, being able to feel comfortable, feeling part of the setup and be in a position where they're expressing themselves. So we couldn't be more proud.
Yeah, I think it's not just something that is said internally. I mean, whenever I've interviewed so many of the players, that's the one echoing sentiment that I keep hearing. The fact that we here are discussing an Andre Russell in the same breath as Venkatesh Iyer in the Galaxy of Knights is not just by coincidence. It's a fact that that's how they feel in the setup, and that's how they end up performing on the field. But from the art to science, we've gone, and science involves a lot of numbers, a lot of equations. And of course, it starts with the money when you're talking about an auction. Now, 90 crore is the magical number that we have there. And of course, for a lot of you out there who are sort of grappling with the mathematics, when you see an Andre Russell at 12 crore, Varun at 8, Venkatesh Iyer at 8, and Sunil Narine at 6, you'd add all that up and say, why is the remaining purse 48? Well, I'll tell you, there is a differentiator between what the players are paid and what is the actual standard deduction from that 90. We won't get into the details of that, but the magical number, Venki, is 48. Now, obviously, you know what you have to deal with. And there are a few other franchises out there who will walk out there with a 68 or a 72. That's something that's got to be a challenge, but that's part of the science, isn't it?
It is, and that's what makes it fascinating and very challenging and exciting as well. And we started doing this. I mean, my first auction was in 2011, and we were just recalling that at that time it was in US dollars, and the salary cap was $9 million, and the exchange rate was 40 rupees. So we've come a long way from there, from 36 crores to 90. But yes, I think that's the beauty about the gaming theory, if you will, on anticipation. Who's going to do it. It's not only enough for you to be prepared with one's own plans, but it's always a zero-sum game when it comes to certain players. And so you really need to be able to anticipate what might happen. Where's the demand likely to come from, at what prices? So that's what makes it really exciting. And we've got some fantastic people in the think tank who do all this number crunching, make it a little easier for us. And we are here sitting a little bit at a higher level, asking questions and saying, what about this? What about that? And it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick your brains in a moment, Venky, on 2011. But Abhishek, since we are talking about the magical number of 48 right now, when you look on the one side, Venky is working with all the numbers and the permutations and the combinations. For you, on the ground, in cricketing terms, you've got to strike the right balance between saying, okay, X might be valued at so and so, but is he valued as much for me? Do I need him as much as I need maybe player Y?
Well, I think, like Venki sir rightly said, I think it's a team combination. It's not so much about what I think, but it's also about what, Baz and the other support staff think. And, collectively, we try and understand as to what value a certain player brings. There's always a price tag attached to it. So sometimes it's about making sure you're giving the right player the kind of value that you want, and understanding what value he then brings to the system and to the ecosystem. So sometimes it's just about understanding that, yes, the numbers play a big role even in that, because it gives you clarity. Sometimes emotions can get the better of you, but just understanding the numbers and understanding what they've done in the past and what how much they've impacted the game sort of makes it easier for everyone else to make that decision. And then we always talk about team culture, which is something that numbers can't give you. But I feel that through the experience that we have in our support staff, and we've got some terrific coaches, and Venky sir as well, I think collectively we use our minds and try and get the best combination possible.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously there's that whole collective coaching unit and everyone who gets together to make the end result. But as promised, since you briefly touched on 2011, there was a situation where you had three big names in GG, if I can call him that, my namesake, Gautam Gambhir, Jack Kallis, Yusuf Pathan. And collectively, if I remember right, there was almost 50% of the budget that was allocated to them. So I mean, obviously, the objective here is not to give away any secrets. The objective here is to get all the fans and the family on the same page. But the real secrets will obviously come out on the actual dates. But we can look back rather than looking forward. So tell us a little bit about your memories of these three gentlemen.
Oh my God, it just comes flooding back, so to say, because that was my first auction. And we had taken a very bold call of not retaining anyone, even though we were allowed to. And the salary cap was $9 million. And, like it has been the pattern with KKR, and I would quickly attribute this to one of the success factors of if we have done reasonably well, it's because, the owners have been completely hands off and allowed me and empowered me to start planning and executing like the way we think. And that filters down for me. When you have the people like Abhishek and Baz and Shrikant and Nathan Lehman and the other coaches who are there, for me, they are the specialists, and, you need to empower them to be able to do their jobs as well as they're capable of doing. And so here we were at the auction table, literally first auction, and we are all in jackets and whatnot, a little bit slightly corporate looking. And we're sitting at our table, and all the other team owners, included, Mrs. Ambani and Preeti Zinta and Shilpa Shetty was there at that time, Vijay Mallya, etc. They're all looking around at our table. They didn't recognize anybody and saying, "Who are these guys? Where's Shahrukh? Where's Jay? Where's Jui?" And anyway, we sat there. We had a plan. And I was hoping, heart was beating fast, trying to be cool outside. But I was hoping that there'll be a couple of names that'll come up of players that we are not interested in, and let the auction warm up a little bit and work through that. But lo and behold, the first name in that auction was Gautam Gambhir. So we had to go bang bang. And actually, you said nearly 50%, but actually it was we spent 5.7 million of our 9 million in the first 45 minutes. and it was Gautam Gambhir, and then it was Yusuf Pathan in quick succession, and then it was Jacques. And so it was a 2-day auction, and everyone we were sort of looking at each other and saying, "What are we going to do over the next 2 days? We don't have money." So it was a lot of fun doing it, but we had a very clear plan on what it was, and the challenge at the table for us was always to sort of remind ourselves that we have to stick to the plan. So there are things that come up at the auction which always sort of tends to maybe cause you to waver a little bit and tempt you at times, but then you remind yourself saying, stick to the plan, stick to the plan. And that's what we were doing, and it did work, and the results are there to show. So we handed the team over to Gigi after we picked him, and I think he was the first one to admit to me that he was the most surprised, because there was no clue that KKR would be interested in him, and he thought there was another franchise that he was likely to go to. But he was surprised, but he was very happy with the team that he inherited, and credit to him and the whole team. That resulted in playoffs and championships, etc. So it was a lot of good memories,
Well, obviously there'll be lots of number crunching on the one hand and looking at kinds of players, slots to fill. But another important aspect of doing this entire process is grooming of young talent. And that, I think, grooming and nurturing of young talent is something we've seen over the years. And before we get both Venky and Abhishek's thoughts on that, I think for all of you out there who may not have seen this, it's from KKR Films. It's called Love, Faith and Beyond. If you happen to have missed it, get onto YouTube and you can have a look at it. It gives you a good insight into the nurturing of young talents. But while we might talk about that, Abhishek, I think you'll realize that come what may, we've talked about those big names from 2011. We've mentioned the Galaxy of Knights, or the founding members, as it were, from 2022. But there's another aspect that you'll always know is important, and that's nurturing of young talent to see the players of tomorrow and day after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I'm going to say this again, but, a lot of credit goes to Venky Sir, DK. I think the inception of the KKR Academy was, their brainchild. They thought of, I think a lot of franchisees obviously try and look after the place through the IPL, but I think the vision at that point was more to make sure that we can look after our players through the season. It didn't matter whether or not they were associated with us post that or not. It was about making sure that we can groom them to become better individuals, better cricketers, and not only succeed in the IPL, but also in the Ranji Trophy, in the Vijay Hazare, and in fulfill their dream of playing for India. And I think that's where it kind of started, the inception of trying to help, these youngsters, trying to, get the best out of them through the season. And, we've got a lot of, if I could say, satisfaction and happiness in seeing a lot of our players, and like we sometimes say, kids grow up, represent the country, become captains of the state sides, start performing in every format. For example, Kamlesh Nagarkoti, I remember when he first came to KKR, had a lot of injuries for the first 2 years, was struggling to get back. To now see him, play in the Vijay Hazare, Syed Mushtaq Ali, after a couple of years, it's been heartening for us to be able to see a Varun Chakravarti, a Venkatesh Iyer, Sandeep Warrior, Nitish Rana, all of them represent the country is truly heartening for all of us. And I think a lot of credit should go to the visionary of this idea, which is, Venky's. And I don't think it's something that was done with the thought process of doing something for KKR, but it was for doing something for the players, so that they always remember what this family did for them, regardless of what happens in the future.
Well, we're going to have that big announcement that I mentioned at the top. But before that, very quickly, I want to get one quick thought from Venky Mysore on the whole supply and demand that we talk about. And very briefly, I know we don't want to get into the whole scientific nature of it, but in a mini auction, you're typically looking for 1 or 2 gaps to fill. If you don't have a wicketkeeper, we have to get a wicketkeeper. Let's go hard for a wicketkeeper. But in a situation like this, does a similar thought process also apply to a big auction where you're filling up an entire squad?
See, the thought process is, as you rightly pointed out, Gautam, is different because fine-tuning of a team, which is typically what happens in a mini auction, is, I suppose, relatively easier. I mean, there are challenges that come with that too, but the big auction is like you've got the four galaxy of stars, as you put it. You were looking for a squad which could be anywhere between 20 to 25, 25 being the max. So you have to pick quite a few players. And I think it really starts with the vision and the type of cricket and that the head coach sees the team and the vision that he has for the team and how we should be playing. And then you sort of start thinking about, what are the skills that you need for that, etc., and work your way through that. So as long as you can stick to that process without getting sucked into thinking about names, then you tend to do okay. But everybody, I mean, we followed this from the 2011 auction, but everyone learns and everyone picks up, and so there's a little bit more competition for similar types of approaches and strategies. So you have to stay one step ahead, and you have to innovate, and you have to figure out and maybe do a lot more pinpointed analysis, and so that's the exciting part of it.
Well, as I said, it's all the one phrase I used at the very start was our patient fans can also be impatient, but we've attributed impatience to enthusiasm. And that's what we love from all of you. You've always done it, continue to do it. And folks, this is what we're talking about, the big announcement you've all been waiting for. Yes, indeed. This is something we may have briefly heard about before. Venky, I'm going to come straight to you. I mean, it's one thing to have fans just out there in the stands cheering for your team. It's another thing to involve them in the thought process about who you might want and take their suggestions on board. Your thoughts on this entire concept of a mock auction?
Well, first of all, credit to our very creative team, headed by Binda, Achint, Himanish, and the whole group there. I mean, they really came up with this idea, and we've done it in different forms in previous years, but it's all about, the tapping into the passion of the fans. I mean, everyone there, I get a lot of DM type of messages, and then the people tweet, and some good messages and some critical messages saying, "What are you doing?" type of thing. So I said it'll be great to get everybody involved in getting the collective thought process going, and they've come up with a very smart way in which fans can get involved with this and share their ideas with us, and at the same time also filter it down to a way in which we can actually interact with those who have been identified as people who have thought it through and who've come up with some smart and interesting ideas on what type of a team should be. And once I remember, I think it might have been the 2018 auction or so, we had done something similar, and we had actually had a face-to-face interaction with the people who were shortlisted, and they came up with some really neat ideas, which I must add that was incorporated into our thinking.
Yes, very interesting point there from Venky Mysore. Memories of a previous mock auction and how it was not just about telling fans that, okay, give us a suggestion, we'll think about it. It wasn't about thinking about it. It was about face-to-face interaction and taking the suggestions on board. In fact, Abhishek, the likes of Owen Morgan, Pat Cummins, Tom Banton, and Rahul Tripathi were all names that also came from this face-to-face interaction.
And interestingly, I remember meeting those three gentlemen. There's a young kid amongst them, and all three had Pat Cummins on their list, and everyone were like, you'll have to get him at number 7, and he'll do wonders for the team. Tom Banton was another favorite at that point. So it's always good to meet people, because we always believe the more suggestions you get, chances of you missing something is even better. So I feel just interacting with the fans, understanding their requirements from from this KKR side. We try and make sure we do everything. We kind of play for them. So to hear from them just gives us a lot of happiness.
And of course, we know that, one national captain winning a 50 over World Cup, Pat Cummins becoming Australian Test captain. So, in a sense, from an emotional point of view, it must give you satisfaction. Obviously, you want these players when they come to the KKR family and perform and give you a championship. But in reverse, when you see them go out there and not just the Indian players, international players representing and leading their countries.
No, for sure. I mean, I think it's it's a matter of great pride for us. Someone sent me a message a few weeks ago about, since the 2018 auction, some of our Indian boys who have gone on to represent the country, like Shubman Gill and Rana and Sandeep Warrior and Prasidh Krishna and Varun Chakravarti, and I may be missing somebody there, but these are boys who came to KKR and then subsequently have moved on. So it just feels, for us, it's a great sense of pride now to see Pat Cummins, who has been part of KKR now captaining Australia, is fantastic, and Moggs, of course, has established himself as one of the greats in leaders in cricketing history. So it's fantastic to see that, and hopefully we'll continue to do things like that.
Yeah, in case you ever walk around the streets of Kolkata and wonder why a few people might speak Bangla with an Irish twang, you know the answer to that. I've experienced it myself. Moggs has had his influence. He's had his say as far as Kolkata is concerned. But we promise to involve the fans. We'll give you more details as you keep listening in terms of how you can get involved, because that kind of reward, the kind of reward where you'll be face to face with the think tank, could be up for grabs for you. But before we do that, gentlemen, we've got some fan questions and we've decided to take it right here, right now on this session. And we've got some interesting ones. One is Indranil from Kolkata. And let's remind you, just because you're a KKR fan doesn't mean you have to be from Kolkata. But as it happens, we'll start with a Kolkata question. And Indranil asks, KKR has been a great scout for young talent in past auctions. With limited domestic action because of the pandemic, what basis do we have to select uncapped talent? And Abhishek, I can come to you first on this. It'll be a challenge, but I'm sure you'd look at a certain aspect.
It is challenging, but luckily for us, in the past 2 seasons, we have been able to watch the Syed Mushtaq Ali, which is a T20 format. The Ranji Trophy has been affected, but the domestic cricket in terms of white ball cricket has been played over the past 2 years. And the kind of structure we follow, we've been scouting players for the past 3, 4, 5 years. So there is a database of players that we have followed over the years. Yes, sometimes you want to see them live, you want to see them in action. But this year, we've been lucky enough to, watch all of them play. A lot of games are live now on TV, and we've got a great scouting system in place, which helps us track players that we've had our eye on over the past few years and see how they've improved. So it's obviously the pandemic has affected cricket, but luckily for us, the system still stays.
And Venky, the next question is completely up your street. Anjali from Cuttack asks, is it okay sometimes to keep going hard for a player even if he is past the budget in bidding? And it's not just KKR. I think every franchise has experienced this at some point.
Yeah, the budgets are things that, frankly, it's our own anticipation of what the value could be and how you said it, so that it doesn't upset the apple cart. But a lot of times it has to do with the instinct at the auction table. And there are times when you're sort of just gauging the mood of the room and of the other tables and trying to pick up on some signals there. So when you want a particular player, it is something that is that's a call that you'll have to make at the table. And collectively we sort of try to gauge how our table is feeling about it, in terms of going for it, not going for it, when to stop, when to keep going, etc. So that's part of the excitement of the auction and the uncertainty of it as well. But I'm sure we're going to see that in this auction too, for sure.
Yeah, remember, that's the difference. I mean, I did an analogy Abhishek and Venky, about art versus science, and how when you think of auctions, you think of art auctions and paintings. The difference being, if two people at a room buy a painting each, it's not that the two paintings are going to go head to head. That's the difference here. You buy a player, the other franchise buys a player, both impact each other because at some point in time, they're going to go head to head. So, but since you mentioned emotions, the next question is, and I'm going to address it to both of you. Hush from Mumbai. Yes, a KKR fan from Mumbai. Such things do happen. We love it. It's an international franchise. Let's not forget. And Hush asks, emotional connect versus logical reasoning. How do you deal with this in an auction, especially when it comes to bidding or not bidding for ex KKR players? There's an interesting little aspect because, I mean, we've reached a stage when almost everybody, other than our Galaxy of Knights founder members, could be all ex players. You might be targeting some. Abhishek?
Well, I think it's a tough question, but I feel emotion gets you to a certain level, but then you need to be practical about forming a team. You have emotional bonds with everyone. I think every cricketer is professional enough to understand that we want everyone. If we had the opportunity, we would try and get the same team we had last year, but sometimes auction dynamics don't let you do that. So I think the approach is always going to be logical and then use emotion as long as it's logical. It's tough to see you get emotional and you sometimes can go all over the place. So I kind of believe it's a balance, but I think logic plays a slightly higher role.
Thank you. Mentioned 2011 where you said you had a different Venky Mysore on the inside and a different one on the outside. Have you evolved yourself? Logic versus emotion?
I think I've got a lot more attached over the years because when I came in 2011, I really didn't have any kind of baggage one way or the other. I was not part of the setup. Therefore, I had not interacted with the team so much. But I think what you, like Abhishek rightly put it, I think a lot of it has to do with the plan that you've put together. And I think one of the keys, and we remind ourselves of that, is to try to stay as unemotional as possible. But in the end, if it is going to be a little bit here and there, naturally, that factor also plays a role because so-and-so has been with you and you know what you're getting there, and their fondness for the culture and the brand and the franchise, etc. All of these things has a bearing to some extent, but you have to play it within reason. And that's where I said in the end, ultimately there's a little bit of art in that too, which is the instinct that I was talking about. You can be very clinical about certain things, and you need to be, for the most part, if you have to be successful in an auction. Otherwise, you perhaps lose the plot in some ways. And this is a 3-year game plan, so it's not just a one-off situation here and there. So it is tough because you build relationships, you grow to become very fond of the people that you associate with, and you enjoy that, and then it's hard to sort of send them off, if you will, and knowing fully well that you may not be able to get them back. So that's the tough part of it.
Well, I'm glad that was said at the conclusion or towards the conclusion of this, because once again, at the very start, I mentioned, let's put art aside and let's go on to the science of an IPL auction. But we've kind of come a full circle saying that even science needs an aspect of art, as Venky Mysore just concluded it. The art could be that instinct where maybe it's not the money, but it's an X factor that gets you to make that selection. And that could be the X factor that all of you out there are going to help contribute, because that's the big news. The mock auction, all of you participating, giving your inputs, and inputs that, as you've seen and heard, will be taken very, very seriously. So as we conclude, gentlemen, and Abhishek, I'll let you go first. Your message to all our wonderful KKR family, the fans who will come on board to make our Galaxy of Knights even bigger than it already is.
Well, I just like to say to all our fans, we're just a few days away from building our Galaxy of Knights, like you rightly said. We would love to hear all your insights and which players that we can go for in the auction, like you've done before. So I'd love to request everyone and ask everyone to engage in the KKR mock auction and register yourself on the KKR website. So get there. We're really looking forward to listening to your ideas and suggestions.
I think we lost your last few words there, Abhishek, but that's okay. We got the message till that point in time. Venky, the last word from you to our fans ahead of this big, eagerly awaited mock auction.
Well, for starters, I would say a big thank you to all of the fans for the kind of support that KKR has gotten over the years. And it's only because of that enthusiasm, love, and support that inspires the team and all of us to reach out for more and do better. And special thanks for all the fans who want to engage in this and who have taken the trouble to send messages and put out their thoughts on it. Here's an opportunity for you to channel it in a very, very scientific way. So put your thinking caps on and come up with those ideas, because I know there are some really good ideas out there that we might not have thought about, and it has helped us as a franchise, as a team, to take on board your ideas as well. So we're really looking forward to that. So can't wait to get your thoughts and ideas and have the interaction too.
Yep. And I will give you one more reminder of that. At the moment, we've been seeing lots and lots of names coming in, already suggestions coming in, even before the session even started. One particular fan wrote in and said, there is no way KKR can play without Shah Rukh Khan in the team. You just need to clarify which one you're talking about. So whenever we get things on board, it's going to be fun, but it's going to be serious business, as this is all about. Art marries science. Thank you, Abhishek Nayar. Thank you, Venky Mysore. We'll have many more of these sessions, much more, as we build up to that big, big, big auction.
Thank you, Gautam. Thanks, as always, for doing a terrific job. And we look forward to the outcome of this interaction with the fans.
Thank you, Gautam.
Well, wasn't that a bit of fun? But a great learning experience to hear from the likes of Venky Mysore and Abhishek Nayar. But this is just the beginning. We've just probably got the tip of the iceberg as far as the science of an IPL auction is concerned. Many more such sessions to come, but the big one you're all looking forward to is KKR mock auction. And if you'd like to be a part of it, process very simple. You need to register on the KKR website, and there's plenty to look forward to, because 30 selected participants from there will get a customized KKR jersey with your name on it from the upcoming season, and three winners will get to virtually meet with the KKR think tank to give their ideas ahead of the big auction. Isn't that incentive enough? It certainly is. We hope you've enjoyed this session. Lots more to look forward to. And as I said, once you're part of the galaxy of nights, possibilities are limitless.